Okay.
Yeah. Just a minute. Speaking.
Announcement by the President.
For their exemplary professionalism and efficiency in successfully managing the temporary relocation of the National Assembly to George Price Center and the seamless return to these premises. Honorable members, before we proceed to the adjournment, I would like to inform honorable members that it has been indicated to me that it is the wish of the Honorable House of Representatives that the Honorable Senate join the House this morning for an address by His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfaan, President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana. As per the program of activities that was circulated, senators will be receiving a guided tour of the renovated National Assembly building, followed by a documentary screening in Committee Room 1 on the third floor. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. The ayes have it. I recognize the leader of government business.
Madam President, I move that
Honorable members, the question is that at its rising place, the Senate adjourns the date to be fixed by the President. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. The ayes have it. Honorable members, the question is that the Senate will now adjourn. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. The ayes have it. The Senate now stands adjourned.
Announcement by the Speaker.
Good morning, honorable members. Third is the charm. Today marks our first meeting of 2026, following the conclusion of the Christmas recess last week for meetings of the House of Representatives. On this historic occasion, the opening of the newly renovated National Assembly building, and with the distinct honor of welcoming the President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali, who will address a joint sitting of the House of Representatives and the Senate, we are pleased to welcome our specially invited guests seated in the public galleries. We extend a warm welcome to Her Excellency, Special Envoy, Mrs. Rosanna Briceño, the Honorable Chief Justice, Her Ladyship, the Honorable Esther Louise Blenman, former Speakers of the House of Representatives, Ms. Laura Tucker-Longsworth, Mr. Michael Perifit, and Mr. Emil Arguez, the High Command of our National Security Services, members of the Diplomatic Corps, mayors of Belize's cities and towns, chief executive officers, president of the Belize Deaf Association, the Disability Desk Coordinator in the Ministry of Human Development, other special invited guests, and members of the Guyana delegation. Honorable members, it has been quite some time since our public galleries have been filled, and we hope that members of the public will once again join us from time to time in witnessing the meetings here. After all, it is the People's House. Honorable members, Madam President and members of the Senate have been invited to attend the special sitting of the House of Representatives on the occasion of the state visit of His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali, President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana. If this is in accordance with your will, the Clerk of the House will be directed to convey to the Honorable President and the Honorable Senators a cordial invitation in your name that they should attend the meeting. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. Clerk, kindly bring the President and members of the Senate to join us in the chamber. Honorable members, the House will now suspend while it awaits the arrival of the President. I invite Madam President, the Leader of the Opposition, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Clerk, and the Mace Bearer to join me at the entrance of the National Assembly to welcome the President. Honorable members and distinguished guests in the galleries, I welcome His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfaan, President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana. I also wish to welcome Honorable Hugh Hilton Todd, Minister of Foreign Affairs for Guyana, who is our guest in the chamber today. I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Investment and Economic Transformation, Civil Aviation and E-Governance.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, Madam President of the Senate, honorable members of the House of Representatives, honorable members of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, members of the media, and most especially His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali, President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana. On behalf of the National Assembly and the people of Belize, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you once again to our nation's capital, Belmopan, and to this joint sitting of the National Assembly. This honorable house is a place where the nation of Belize, our proud homeland, was born. History records, Madam Speaker, that this hallowed place, the Independence Secretariat, where all the planning and the formal ceremonies and joyous celebrations on the occasion of our independence in 1981 was housed downstairs. But a small, dedicated team worked endless hours to ensure that arrangements were in place for us to seamlessly emerge from colony to nation as the land of the free by the Caribbean Sea. On Independence Day, the 21st day of September 1981, in a unique act, the National Assembly met here and passed the Belize Constitution. Unlike other CARICOM nations whose founding documents continues to this day to be the instruments passed by the United Kingdom Parliament, our founding leaders met, debated, and passed our own constitution. It was not merely ceremony, nor was it empty symbolism. It was a defining act of self-determination by a people who have struggled for decades to be sovereign free. By passing the Constitution as a Belizean law, we commenced the process of decolonization. We affirmed our national dignity as a sovereign democratic state of Central America in the Caribbean region. President, His Excellency Dr. Irfaan Ali, my friend, welcome to Belize and to our humble home on Independence Hill. Your visit, the first state visit by a president of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana, is history-making. It also builds on the 2022 Memorandum of Understanding on Cooperation signed at State House in Georgetown, Guyana. The several memorandums of understanding we will sign today covers diverse areas: education, tourism, digitization, and agriculture. They cover socio-economic and productive sectors of our countries. They provide solid bases for deeper collaboration in areas of mutual benefit. We offer our experience in tourism as you build your tourism product in the land of many waters. Our geographic similarities provide scope for knowledge sharing. Our expertise in agriculture will be made available and educational opportunities explored. Your experience in digitization will help us in our own efforts in this regard. Belize and Guyana must move deliberately to achieve our mutual ambition to feed CARICOM. The revised Treaty of Chaguaramus provides this legal framework for free movement of goods within CARICOM. We must leverage our abundant resources, facilitate private sector investment, and reap the benefits of our people. We share a history shaped by sugar. Fields were plowed and cane cut by indentured labor, and sugar exported to Europe by nationalists. As the industry evolved, it provided jobs, educated our children, earned foreign exchange, and drove the development of our colonial societies. But that was yesterday. Today, we will jointly facilitate private sector investment in the refined sugar sector. Sugar remains an agricultural mainstay for both Belize and Guyana. As governments, we will assure the private sector that we will work diligently to ensure that CARICOM is an assured market for Belizean and Guyanese producers of refined sugar. This building, first used on 9 October 1970, was designed to accommodate 18 members, but for 2 decades, our House of Representatives consists of 31 members. Renewal, renovation, repurposing was overdue. Madam President, in the name of the government and people of Belize, permit me to offer our sincere gratitude to the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for their significant grant, which made this impressive renovation possible. Our 2 nations continue to enjoy deep bonds of friendship, fraternity, and freedom. Our shared values, respect for self-determination, multilateralism, human rights, and democracy are universal principles which remain unshaken. We are very grateful and thankful and offer thanks to the teams and individuals under the excellent leadership of the Ministry of Infrastructure Development and Housing who labored to transform the building. By dint of their industry, we are now be able to do the people's work in facilities that meet the needs of modern Belize. This, Madam Speaker, is the house where we work, an essential part of the democratic process. It is where we debate the bills, motions, and resolutions that are essential for the public affairs of our country. Since 1981, Belize has held 10 general elections. Governments have peacefully exchanged hands 6 times. Our democratic traditions are deeply ingrained in the DNA of every Belizean. We will, in this year, bring forward the great debate on constitutional reform after the work of the People's Constitutional Commission. We will consider the important report of the Elections and Boundaries Commission on redivisioning when it is delivered to the Commission, by the Commission. These undertakings are essential to us in maintaining the legitimacy of the democracy we cherish. Both Belize and Guyana are irreversibly committed to democratic practices and traditions. Elections which are free and fair, 1 person, 1 vote, and the will of the people respected. Madam President, it would be remiss of me if I did not comment on these brief remarks on the turbulent times we are experiencing. Multipolarity has reemerged. Multilateralism is on the decline. Tariff wars breed instability and uncertainty. Might is now right. Borders are being transactional. This shift in the international order is inimical to Belize's interests, and I dare say to the interests of the global South. Belize's existence depends on a world in which multilateralism prevails, where fundamental international norms guide our relations. We can only flourish in a world with strong regional and international institutions that are well funded for us to meet global threats like climate change. Self-determination, respect for territorial integrity, and the peaceful settlements of disputes are articles of faith for Belize and Guyana. We both face territorial claims which will be settled by the International Court of Justice. We therefore require an international order that respects court judgments and reject the use of force to settle disputes. We say unequivocally that the Caribbean should be a zone of peace. Madam Speaker, Belize believes in the non-interference in internal affairs of states. We view with serious concern recent events in our region which clearly undermine this principle. More concerning for us is the recently proclaimed executive order, which is likely to have grave consequences for the people of Cuba. The government of Belize stands in full solidarity with the Cuban people. We call for urgent good faith talks to avert a humanitarian crisis which is likely to emerge in the Republic of Cuba if there is ever decreasing deliveries of petroleum products. A manufactured humanitarian disaster is neither moral nor is it illegal. Belize and Guyana, both mainland countries of CARICOM, both facing similar threats to our territories. We are the agricultural powerhouse of CARICOM. We are both great stewards of the environment, blessed with similar colonial histories and culturally enriched by our indigenous people. We firmly believe that our future is inextricably linked by our similar histories and challenges we face today. Together, we look confidently to the future. We are assured that together we will unlock the possibilities which our peoples deserve. Destiny will favor us, and we will deliver for our people. Mr. President, on behalf of my government and the Belizean people, I salute you on your recent re-election, and I look forward to working with you in the years ahead as we strengthen our bilateral relations. I know we will continue to build on the excellent relations we enjoy for the benefit of our respective peoples. May the Almighty continue to bless the people of Belize and Guyana. Thank you so much.
The Honorable President of the Senate, Honorable Colin Trench Sandiford, and Honorable Senators, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Valerie Woods, the Honorable Prime Minister, John Bricino, and members of the Cabinet, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, and members of the House of Representatives, Special Envoy Her Excellency Rosanna Bricino, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and invited guests. It is a great honor to stand before this assembly in the spirit of friendship and shared purpose that has long united Belize and Guyana. From the moment of our arrival, my delegation and I have felt not only the warmth of the Belizean hospitality, but the easy familiarity of a Caribbean family welcoming one of its own. I am deeply honored to have been invited on a state visit to this magnificent country, an expression of the highest respect between sovereign nations, and a moment to reaffirm the bonds that connect our peoples, our institutions, and our shared aspirations. The occasion provides Guyana and Belize with a valued opportunity to deepen political dialogue, expand cooperation across economic, security, cultural, and environmental spheres, and reaffirm the common values and strategic interests that bind our two countries. I'm equally appreciative of the invitation to address this honorable assembly. This House stands as the guardian of Belize's democracy. It is the representative forum in which the aspirations, interests, and will of the Belizean people are given voice and expression. Precisely because this assembly embodies the democratic will and sovereign authority of the Belizean people, it provides a most fitting setting in which to reflect on the deeper bonds that unite our two nations. Belize and Guyana are bound by more than diplomacy. We are united by a shared history of colonization, by common resolve in safeguarding our independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and by aspirations rooted in dignity, stability, and progress. Belize and Guyana also share a strong and enduring commitment to democratic governance. Central to this commitment is the role of our representative parliaments. These institutions serve as the principal forums for democratic deliberation, accountability, and lawmaking. Through our representative assemblies, the voices of our citizens are expressed, national priorities are debated, and governments are held to account. In this way, democracy is reinforced not only as a system of governance, but as a shared value that underpins political stability and national development in both our countries. Belize and Guyana are both small states, richly endowed with natural resources, including environmental assets and ecosystems of global significance. Our two countries possess some of the most diverse and valuable ecosystems in the Caribbean, encompassing vast tracts of tropical forests, extensive freshwater resources, and extraordinary biodiversity that place us among the world's most environmentally significant small states. Our territories include critical habitats that support unique flora and fauna, provide essential ecosystem services such as carbon sequestration and climate regulation, and sustain livelihoods through agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and ecotourism. At the same time, these natural endowments carry global responsibilities. Belize and Guyana serve as careful custodians of environmental heritage, whose preservation is vital not only to our national development, but also to regional and global ecological balance. And that is why we have a joint responsibility to monetize this most important global asset, and the world in turn has a responsibility to ensure that economic value of these assets are passed on to the peoples of our countries. It must therefore be our resolve to win this battle of monetization now, so that successive generations from now would inherit this same rich value we have today. We are proud members of the Caribbean community, a regional family founded on cooperation, integration, and collective self-reliance. Through this shared membership, Belize and Guyana strengthen our capacity to address common challenges, advance regional development, and project a united and constructive voice on the global stage. Above all, Belize and Guyana share a principled commitment to the peaceful settlement of disputes. We have consistently chosen dialogue over confrontation and law over force. In this spirit, both our nations place confidence in the rule of international law and in established legal and diplomatic processes as a means by which differences are resolved. We affirm that lasting peace and stability are best secured through restraint, reason, and respect for international norms. Yet, like many small states, Belize and Guyana have also carried burdens that have constrained development. As small and open economies, we have at times been particularly vulnerable to shifts in external market conditions, fluctuations in global commodity prices, disruptions to supply chains, and changes in international financial and trade environments have periodically exposed our economies to sudden and disruptive shocks. These vulnerabilities are compounded by limitations inherent in small domestic markets. The scale of our economies restrict opportunities for efficiency and growth. Constraints in technical expertise and specialized human capital can also show the full realization of our natural and economic potential. Both our countries have faced challenges to territorial integrity and sovereignty. These challenges have demanded sustained attention, absorbed resources, and created uncertainty, with consequences for economic and social progress. We also confront common threats that transcend borders. Climate change poses profound risks to our societies and economies. Energy and food insecurity place additional strain on development. Transnational crime, including the illicit trafficking of drugs, weapons, and people, undermines stability and corrodes institutions. These challenges facing small states in our hemisphere are becoming more acute and more complex. Climate change continues to threaten coastlines, food systems, and water security. Energy insecurity and volatility in global markets expose our economies to shocks beyond our control. Food insecurity, driven by climate events and external disruptions, places additional strain on vulnerable populations. That is why, Prime Minister, my dear friend, I agree with you that Belize and Guyana must lead in the food security of this region. And when we make this investment, human, financial, and technological investment, the region must in turn have a fair trade system in which our produce and production is not subjected to the bureaucracy of the system, or is not subjected to artificial barriers of trade that affect this region. We must together champion the cause of removing the barriers to trade, especially in food in this region. For too long, the region is taken for granted. Our farmers and our food system. We must push back hard now to ensure that our food becomes the region food by a system that encourages and supports this. As I said, climate change continues to threaten coastlines, food systems, and water security. Food insecurity driven by climate events and external disruptions place additional strain on vulnerable populations. These material and environmental pressures are unfolding at a time when the international environment itself is marked by heightened uncertainty and rapid change. For small states, this underscores the importance of stable institutions, predictable rules, and cooperative approaches to global problem solving. When international conditions become less predictable, small economies face higher costs, reduced market access, and fewer opportunities for growth. In such circumstances, the consistent application of agreed rules and respect for established processes become even more vital to safeguarding sovereignty and development. These dynamics make it more challenging for small states to pursue sustainable development. They also reinforce the case for partnership, dialogue, and collective engagement as the most effective means by which small nations can protect their interests and advance their aspirations in the global arena. These realities compel us to ask a fundamental question: how can small states facing existential threats and operating in a complex and demanding international environment secure their well-being and advance sustainable development? I suggest that the answer does not lie in a single solution. It lies in a strategic set of mutually reinforcing approaches. First, we must continue to deepen regional cooperation. And we must look at best practices in the region itself. And we must be able not only to look at those best practices, but to embrace those practices. Build capacity among each other. Advance capacity among each other. And that is what Belize and Guyana, that is what we're celebrating here today. The exchange of ideas, technology, and systems that are localized, that are proven to be effective within our own ecosystem. And when we trust each other to transfer our localized technology to support the growth and development of each other, we become stronger, more resilient, and definitely more independent. And that is what we celebrate today. Through shared membership in regional organizations, small states find strength in numbers. These institutions enable us to protect national interests whilst advancing shared objectives, whether in trade, climate action, or collective security. Regional cooperation is not a surrender of sovereignty. It is a reinforcement of that sovereignty. By acting collectively, small states are better able to negotiate from a position of confidence and to speak with a unified and constructive voice in global affairs. This enhances influence, strengthens resilience, and expands opportunities. Regional integration also creates a broader and more assured economic base within which our countries can trade and invest with greater confidence. You know, the irony of the region is that our nurses are good enough to be trained in this region and pursued by the advanced markets in UK, Canada, European Union. But our education system is not good enough in those same markets for them to compensate us for the training of these nurses. If the end product is good enough for your market, then surely the system that developed that product must be of the class and standard that your market requires. It is these debates that will define how successful we are in the future. We must not shoot ourselves down by saying to the world our educational system is no good. Yes, there might be challenges, but it is the same education system that is providing the nurses, the doctors, the technicians, the construction workers that they seek after. Unless, as a collective, we recreate minds of positivity and advance stories of success, we'll forever be in that state of mental slavery. And this is something Belize and Guyana must champion. We have developed a digital school that is now available for all of the region. Our education system must continue to improve to meet the needs of our regional children. And our regional children and regional parents must trust what we build. Must trust what we build and use what we build in this region. By acting collectively, small states are better able to negotiate from a position of confidence and to speak with a unified and constructive voice in global affairs. This enhanced influence strengthens resilience and expands opportunity. Regional integration also creates a broader and more assured economic space within which our countries can trade and invest with greater confidence. The movement toward a CARICOM single market and economy offers a shared market that facilitates the movement of labor, capital, goods and services, strengthening competitiveness and widening opportunity for all member states. Despite the challenge it has faced over the decades, the Caribbean community has stood the test of time. I repeat that. The Caribbean community has stood the test of time. For more than 50 years, CARICOM has remained intact, resilient, and relevant in a changing global environment. Its endurance speaks to the strength and value of the regional ideal. It is now incumbent upon us to make the community stronger, more responsive, and better equipped to serve both the collective and national interests of our peoples. This requires renewal, commitment, and a shared sense of purpose. Within CARICOM, differences of opinions should not be viewed as divisive. While we must strive and strive earnestly for consensus, a plurality of views, and at times divergence in perspectives are essential to the vitality of our deliberations. Such diversity sharpens analysis, strengthens decision-making, and ensures that outcomes are more inclusive and reflective of our lived realities. Respectful disagreements is not a source of fragmentation. It is often a wellspring of collective strength. The recently concluded partnership agreement between the European Union and Mercosur stands as a clear illustration of the benefits of interregional cooperation in a complex and evolving global economy. It reflects a growing recognition that collective engagement across regions can expand market access, strengthen economic resilience, and enhance influence for participating states. This agreement forms part of a broader and accelerating global trend. Across regions, countries are deepening economic partnerships, both within regions and between them, as practical and forward-looking responses to uncertainty and change. This development underscores the enduring relevance of cooperation, integration, and partnership as effective tools for advancing shared prosperity and mutual interests. In navigating a demanding global environment, small states must continue to place confidence in the international rule of law and in the value of multilateral engagement. Given their limited economic, political, and military capacity, small states rely on shared rules, agreed norms, and collective mechanisms to safeguard their interests and advance their development. International law for small states is not an abstraction, it is a practical and essential safeguard. It provides predictability, encourages restraint, and offers peaceful means for the resolution of disputes. For this reason, small states have a strong and enduring interest in active participation in multilateral institutions. Through these frameworks, states, large and small, engage on the basis of agreed principles and mutual respect. Such engagements help to ensure that differences are managed through dialogue, cooperation, and established processes. Multilateral engagement is therefore not a matter of convenience for small states. It is necessity. It provides the rules, norms, and collective engagements that ensure smaller nations are heard and our issues are addressed. In a system grounded in cooperation and respect for law, legitimacy carries weight and power is tempered by principle. By supporting and strengthening multilateral engagement, small states help to safeguard their sovereignty, enhance their security, and preserve their right to shape their own destinies. In a global economy marked by change and uncertainty, small states cannot afford to rely excessively on a narrow range of markets or partnerships. Dependence is not a strategy. It is a vulnerability. When external conditions shift, those with limited options bear the greatest cost. Economic sovereignty, like political independence, is preserved not by reliance alone, but by diversification. For small states, resilience is built through choice. It is strengthened by partnerships that are broad, balanced, and flexible. In this regard, I emphasize the flexibility of our partnerships. Fostering stronger South-South cooperation and expanding trade among developing states should form an important pillar of foreign policy. Such engagement widens opportunity, cushions against external shocks, and reduces structural dependence. Internally, diversification is equally essential. While sectors such as tourism have demonstrated resilience in recent years, small states are most secure when growth is not carried on the shoulders of a few sectors alone. a diversified economy embracing new frontiers such as digitization, technology-driven services, and environmental services is not merely desirable. It is a practical investment in long-term resilience and sustainable development. Our future and future-proofing our economies require us to embrace AI, digitization, technology, and the ecosystem that ensures this generation and the next generation can function in the new world. And we must also ensure that the legislative framework and the rules that govern the equitable delivery of these technologies and the moral compass through which these technologies are implemented, that they are in place today to secure our society, our democracy, and our ideals. This is now practical investment in long-term resilience and sustainable development. On the bright side, the size of our population is the pilot size for any technology. So we can do this at scale and at speed through a pilot. And yes, it is expensive. But if we look at what we have already and the capacity we have already in the system, it will allow us to do this at a cost that is more reflective of our economies. And that is some of the partnership that we are engaging in. While safeguarding strategic autonomy, small states must also recognize the importance of cooperation where interests align. Partnership and autonomy are not opposing concepts. When pursued thoughtfully, they are mutually reinforcing. This is especially true in the area of security. Cooperation is essential to protecting our societies and economies from transnational criminal networks engaged in the trafficking of weapons, people, and illicit goods. Geography places both Belize and Guyana along routes that are exploited by such networks, creating challenges that no single state can address alone. These threats do not respect borders. They therefore require coordinated responses. Transnational problems demand transnational solutions. It is imperative that small states actively pursue cooperation within regional and international partners who share a common interest in preventing, disrupting, and dismantling organized criminal activity. Such cooperation strengthens national capacity and enhances collective security. Sovereignty is not diminished by cooperation. It is weakened by isolation and vulnerability. Through partnership grounded in mutual respect, small states are better able to protect their people, their institutions, and their future. Another essential pillar of resilience for a small state lies in democracy and open economies. In a world of rapid change and evolving challenges, transparency, accountability, and respect for human rights are not luxuries. They're strategic assets. Representative democracy, anchored in free and fair elections, ensures that power remains accountable to the people. It provides governments with legitimacy and purpose. Open and democratic societies attract investments, encourage innovation, and empower citizens to contribute meaningfully to national development. For small states, the rule of law, the integrity of electoral processes, and the protection of civil liberties are not optional ideals. They're essential safeguards of sovereignty, stability, and social cohesion. And this is not the responsibility for governments alone. It is the responsibility of every citizen, every organization, and the private sector. In the development of a modern society, every segment of the society must be held accountable. Accountability is not only for the government. It is for the opposition. It is for the private sector. It is for the education system. It is for every segment of the population. Economic openness also plays a critical role in development. While openness carries risk, it facilitates access to market, capital, technology, and ideals that are vital for growth. Open economies may be more exposed to external shocks. They are also more adaptable and better positioned to recover from disruption. For small states, openness is not an act of recklessness. It is a deliberate and calculated choice, one that expands opportunity while demanding vigilance and sound governance. Democracy and openness are therefore twin engines of resilience, adaptability, and long-term progress. Together, they provide small states with the confidence, credibility, and capacity to navigate uncertainty and advance the well-being of their peoples. It is from this foundation of democratic confidence and openness that we now turn to the most urgent test of collective resilience, one that transcends borders, demands cooperation, and speaks directly to the future of small states: climate change. Climate change represents the most serious and immediate existential challenge facing small states, including Belize and Guyana. Rising sea levels, increasingly intense storms, prolonged droughts, and coastal erosion threaten lives, livelihoods, and long-term development. For centuries, with low-lying coastlines and climate-sensitive economies, these impacts are accelerating and demand sustained attention at the national, regional, and global levels. Small states are neither passive nor powerless in the face of this challenge. While we are among those most exposed to the consequences of climate change, we are also determined to be part of the solution. The solution is not a begging bowl for handouts or for charity or for sympathy. The problem is real, and we have real assets. So the solution must be market-based, and we must let the world understand that what we possess, this natural asset, is part of an ecosystem that supports life and livelihood on this earth, and the valuation and value must come to our people. While we are among those most exposed to the consequences, we are also determined, as I said, to be part of the solution. Belize and Guyana have consistently demonstrated leadership in this regard. We provide the world with critical ecosystem and environmental services, including carbon sequestration, biodiversity conservation, and climate regulation. And let me say something on biodiversity. We launched the Global Biodiversity Alliance. We live in a planet today where in the last 60 years we have lost more than 60% of our biodiversity asset globally. Belize and Guyana, we have kept most of ours intact. When biodiversity goes, ecological systems go. Medicine goes. Pharmaceutical goes. Research and development goes. Culture goes. Indigenous knowledge goes. Because biodiversity supports all of those things. Forest-rich and biodiversity-endowed countries must therefore place appropriate value on these assets and manage them responsibly. In Guyana, we have made it clear that our forests are worth more standing than being felled. Through our low-carbon development strategy, we have begun to translate this principle into action by monetizing the value of forest conservation through jurisdictional carbon credit mechanism. We are also pursuing innovative financing approaches to safeguard biodiversity and strengthen environmental resilience. Food security is another pressing challenge confronting our world and our region. Globally, more than 700 million people face hunger, while billions experience moderate or severe food insecurity. Conflict, climate shocks, supply chain disruptions, and economic volatility have combined to place unprecedented pressure on global food system. Rising food prices have further compounded these pressures, disproportionately affecting small states that rely heavily on food imports and are therefore exposed to external shocks beyond their control. For Belize, Guyana, and the wider Caribbean, food security must mean ensuring that all our peoples have reliable access to affordable, nutritious, and adequate food. Recognizing this imperative, CARICOM has set an ambitious yet achievable target of reducing the region's food import bill by 25% by 2030. And here lies enormous opportunities for Brazil, for Belize and Guyana. Brazil, yes, is on our mind because as we adopt new technology and look at expanding our food system, it is important that we look at what Brazil is doing. The systems, the technology, the genetics that they're investing in. It's a low-hanging fruit. We have to embrace these changes if we are to be more resilient, sustainable, creating higher yield crops, more resilient to diseases and pests. And Guyana is ready to not only support this journey of Belize, but to walk in partnership with you. Achieving these targets requires sustained investment in agriculture, the adaptation of modern technologies, the expansion of climate-resilient farming practices, improved logistics, and greater emphasis on value-added agro-processing. Strengthening our agri-food system is not only an economic necessity, it is a strategic imperative for resilience, public health, and social stability. Food security alone, however, cannot sustain development or resilience unless it is supported by reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy. Energy powers production, transportation, and value creation across our economies. Energy security is therefore vital to the economic transformation and long-term competitiveness of small states. High and volatile energy prices raise production costs, strain public finance, and undermine growth, particularly in economies that depend heavily on energy imports. For many years, our region has been exposed to external energy shocks, leaving our economies vulnerable to global price fluctuations. This reality reinforces the importance of building stronger and more secure energy systems. We must therefore pursue greater regional and national energy security as a foundation for sustainable development. This includes diversifying energy sources, expanding the use of renewable energy, improving energy efficiency, and strengthening regional cooperation in energy planning and infrastructure. And in doing all of this, we must give greater ownership to our citizens, our private sector, and those who reside in our country. If our citizens and our people in the region own our food system, own our energy system, own our telecom system, own our technology, own the things that drive our economy, then we are building resilience from within, and we are building prosperity from within. Let us not forget that. By reducing dependence on imported fossil fuels and stabilizing energy costs, we can accelerate economic progress, enhance resilience, and create a more secure and sustainable future for our peoples. I conclude by reminding honorable members that throughout history, our peoples and our lands have braved storms, both literal and in metaphor. We have endured the forces of nature. We have resisted enslavement and injustices of indentureship and colonial domination. We have preserved through economic hardship our culture, our systems, and our people. Time and again, Belizeans and Guyanese have demonstrated a steadfast belief in our right to determine our own future. Our history is not one of passivity. It is a history of persistence. That legacy now calls upon us to act with renewed purpose. It calls upon small states to exercise confidence and to play their full and rightful role in shaping the future we seek and the world seek for our peoples. In a rapidly changing world, this requires for us to be nimble, flexible, and adaptable, ready to innovate, ready to cooperate, and ready to seize opportunity, while remaining firmly anchored in the principles that define who we are. With confidence in our people and clarity of purpose, we can meet uncertainty not with fear, but with resolve. Belize and Guyana may be small in size, but we are not small in principle, ambition, or determination. By standing together within our region and beyond, by upholding the rule of law, strengthening democratic institutions, and cooperating strategically, we can ensure that our peoples do more than endure the challenges of our time. We can ensure that they prosper. It is on this foundation of shared values, mutual respect, and common purpose that the partnership between Belize and Guyana will continue to grow. And I assure my dear friend, the Prime Minister, and the people of Belize that the prosperity of Guyana will lead to the prosperity of Belize and the prosperity of this region. I call upon the private sector of both countries to seek out opportunities between both countries. Create partnership in capital, in talent, in land, in technology, and in market. I can assure you, you have two governments aligned in this vision of empowering the private sector, empowering the people to grow their prosperity, advance their businesses, create jobs, and enhance the economic well-being of the people of both countries. The private sector is central to the expansion of this relationship. The private sector is integral to the expansion of this relationship. Together, we can transform challenges into opportunities and offer our peoples not only security and stability, but confidence in the future they are building. I thank you honorable members, for the privilege of addressing this assembly. May God bless this honorable assembly. May God continue to bless Belize and Guyana and the enduring bond of friendship between our countries. I thank you, and God bless all of you.
Madam Speaker, Honorable Prime Minister, honorable members of the House of Representatives, honorable members of the Senate, members of the Diplomatic Corps accredited to Belize and the Co-operative Republic of Guyana, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and most especially His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali, President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana. On behalf of the Senate of Belize, the National Assembly, and the people of Belize, I extend our sincere appreciation to you, Mr. President, for your visit to Belize and for the honor of addressing this joint sitting of Parliament. Mr. President, our Prime Minister has spoken to your strong passion for and sustained interest in agriculture and sound environmental stewardship. I wish to add to this by recognizing your exemplary leadership and substantive lasting contributions to the advancement of urban and regional planning in Guyana and across the wider Caribbean region. As a planner, it would have been remiss of me not to slip that in this address. Mr. President, we're deeply appreciative of your time, the time that you have taken to engage with us in this Parliament, and for the thoughtful reflections and perspectives you have shared. Your remarks speak not only to the relationship, the sisterhood, the brotherhood between our two nations, or to the sharing of that distinct feature of being mainland Caribbean, but also to the broader values that guide us as Caribbean democracies. Indeed, your presence here today underscores the strength of the long-standing friendship between Belize and Guyana. It is a relationship grounded in respect, solidarity, and a shared commitment to democratic governance and regional cooperation. Your address has reaffirmed the importance of continued dialogue, meaningful cooperation, and mutual understanding among our nations and within our wider Caribbean community. This joint sitting, convened in your honor, Mr. President, also affirms the central constitutional role of Parliament in democratic governance. It reflects the importance we attach to parliamentary diplomacy as a means of strengthening cooperation between our nations, of facilitating the exchange of views, and of reinforcing the institutions through which our peoples are represented and served. Mr. President, we thank you for your words, for your leadership within the region, and for the goodwill you continue to extend to the people of Belize. We are confident that your visit will further strengthen the ties between our countries and contribute positively to our shared aspirations for peace, progress, and prosperity. Once again, Mr. President, on behalf of the Senate of Belize and the National Assembly and the people of Belize, I extend our heartfelt thanks and wish you a most enjoyable and successful continuation of your visit. Thank you, Mr. President.
Honorable members, distinguished guests, and Belizeans tuning in at home and abroad. Today's joint sitting was made all the more meaningful by the presence and the address of His Excellency, President Dr. Mohamed Irfaan. Your thoughtful remarks remind us of the enduring bonds of friendship that unite our Caribbean family through CARICOM, and of the strong and long-standing relationship between Belize and the Co-operative Republic of Guyana, rooted in shared history, mutual respect, and a common commitment to regional cooperation and development. On behalf of the National Assembly of Belize, I extend sincere appreciation to His Excellency for his inspiring remarks, which reinforces the value of regional unity and collective action as we work together to meet shared challenges and seize shared opportunities. As today also marks the official launch of the National Assembly's renovations, we have reopened the Parliament building with renewed pride in this institution and its vital role in our democracy. I express special thanks to the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the initial grant that helped to mobilize the renovation project. To the Government of Belize, with particular thanks to Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, the Honorable John Bersenio, for his support of the vision and project plans from the inception, and to all members of the National Assembly for approving the much-needed budgetary allocations, of course, that made possible the comprehensive and much-needed retrofit and enhancements of this chamber, ensuring safer, more inclusive and modern conditions for all who serve and participate here. I also recognize the valued partnership with the National Institute of Culture and History for the artwork from the National Art Collection of Belize and curated interpretive panels and ongoing initiative, which will support guided tours and promote civic education on the role and work of the National Assembly of Belize. Honorable members, as we prepare to close today's proceedings, it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge the Clerk of the National Assembly. I extend sincere appreciation to the Clerk of the National Assembly for her leadership and to the dedicated team at the National Assembly for their commitment throughout this renovation process, and to the Ministry responsible for infrastructure and development as the executing agency which led the work over the past 14 months under the leadership of Minister Julius Espat and Chief Engineer Evandale Moody. Over the past 14 months, they ensured that they preserved and strengthened this historical building, the home of the people's representatives. May this renewed chamber continue to be a place of robust dialogue. Let me repeat that, robust dialogue, debate, sound decision-making, and service to the people of Belize. And may our work here always reflect the democratic ideals we share as a nation and as members of the wider Caribbean community. I thank you.
Motions relating to the sitting or business of the House.
The Honorable Prime Minister of Belize.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn. Madam Speaker, before that one, I move that at its rising to the House adjourned to Friday the 6th, February 2026 at 10 a.m.
Honorable members, the question is that the House at its rising today adjourned to Friday, 6th February 2026 at 10 a.m. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister of Belize.
the host be adjourned.
Honorable members, before I put the question for the adjournment, I wish to invite the Honorable Prime Minister, the President, Your Excellency, the Honorable Leader of Opposition, Madam President of the Senate as well. Please join us right here on the podium here for an official photo. They say no?
No.
I think the ayes have it.